Well, there's one thing I'm sure of. This is last year with the Lakers. He's not going to play with the Lakers next year. Um, I've always said I'd like to see him finish in Cleveland. Like I said, I'd love to see him finish his career in Cleveland because I've been on the record. I thought he should have never left Cleveland.
You back at the crib.
Cleveland.
I want to see you back in Cleveland. By the way, James Harden and Donovan Mitchell already been pitching to the front office that they want Bron back in Cleveland.
I think he's going to go to Cleveland and end there. I think he's going to go play for the Cavs next year, and that'll be the sign off. That he'll end where it started.
I think once this season is over, I think he goes back to Cleveland, finish it up there.
One thing feels certain. This looks like LeBron James last season with the Lakers, because all signs point to him not returning to Los Angeles next year and instead bringing his career full circle by going back to Cleveland, the place many people have always believed he never should have left in the first place. The idea of LeBron returning to the Cavaliers is not being treated like random off-season fantasy anymore, but as something serious, something that credible and connected voices around the league keep hinting at with growing confidence. At 40 years old, with 4 championships, a legacy already cemented, and a career that has somehow continued to defy every normal rule about aging, athleticism, and longevity, LeBron is standing at the edge of what could be the most cinematic final chapter any superstar has ever written. A return to Cleveland would not just be a roster move, it would be a storybook ending, a king returning to the kingdom, the prodigal son coming home to the city that raised him and the city he lifted forever with that 2016 title. What makes the possibility even more powerful is that Cleveland is not just some sentimental destination anymore, because the Cavaliers have quietly built a roster that looks dangerous enough to contend right now. Donovan Mitchell remains one of the deadliest closers in basketball, Evan Mobley keeps evolving into a defensive monster, Jarrett Allen gives them strength and stability in the paint, and the addition of James Harden adds another elite ball handler and proven veteran playmaker who knows pressure, knows playoff basketball, and still has the ability to make a major impact when the lights are brightest. This is no longer a team built to sneak into relevance and exit in the second round. It is a team with real championship ambition, and when you imagine adding LeBron James to Mitchell, Harden, Mobley, and Allen, the picture becomes terrifying for the rest of the Eastern Conference. Even more telling is the fact that the recruitment is reportedly already happening, with Harden and Mitchell said to be openly pushing the front office toward bringing LeBron back, because they understand exactly what he brings to a locker room, to a franchise, and to a city's sense of belief. LeBron has never been just a player. He changes the emotional temperature of an entire organization the moment he arrives. And yet, for all the noise around the possibility, LeBron himself has not shut it down at all. When asked directly about retirement and next season, he gave almost nothing away, offering only that familiar LeBron-style line, "When I know, you'll know," and with him, silence has always been strategy. Meanwhile, the Lakers appear to be entering a different chapter. Their trade for Luka Doncic signals a pivot toward a new era, a new face of the franchise, and a new long-term identity. As important as LeBron has been to the Lakers, and he has meant everything to them, this no longer feels fully like his team. The cap math gets messy when trying to balance LeBron's contract expectations with Luka's max-level future, and Los Angeles needs flexibility to build around its younger cornerstone. For a player like LeBron, who has never been interested in fading quietly into the background or spending his final stretch as a supporting actor in someone else's story, that matters. Some argue that staying in Los Angeles would still make sense because of his business interests, his media empire, his global partnerships, and the infrastructure he has built there, but that argument is not as airtight as it once seemed. LeBron already has the homes, the ventures, the Nike machine, the Spring Hill empire, and the global investments to operate from anywhere. His influence is no longer tied to a zip code. In fact, from a business standpoint, a farewell season in Cleveland may be even more valuable than staying in Los Angeles. The commercial power of a final LeBron James season, officially framed as the goodbye tour, would be massive. Every road game would become an event, every ticket a premium item, every arena a stop on a national tribute, every city desperate to say it witnessed him one last time. Families would buy tickets months in advance just so their kids could someday say they saw LeBron play before it was over. Nike would build campaigns around it, the NBA would market it relentlessly, and every franchise would turn his visit into a celebration. The scale of that kind of farewell would rival anything the league has seen in modern history, maybe even surpassing the emotional electricity of Kobe Bryant's final season, because while Kobe ended where he started, LeBron would be doing something even more dramatic by returning to where his story began. Then there is the legacy argument, the predictable pushback that LeBron has nothing left to prove, and in one sense that is completely true. He already owns one of the most complete resumes basketball has ever seen, and another season or two cannot really add or subtract much from the monument he has built. History shows that clearly. Michael Jordan's Wizards years did not damage his mythology at all. They became a footnote, not a stain. So the idea that LeBron risks his legacy by continuing to play is not really supported by precedent. The real question is whether he can afford to walk away from an ending this perfect when Cleveland is sitting there with a contender-level roster, star players actively calling for him, and a city that would welcome him back with open arms. On top of all that sits the deeply personal layer involving Bronny. LeBron has openly said that sharing the court with his son was one of the genuine goals of his final years, and if there is any scenario where father and son could potentially close the circle together in Ohio, that would turn this from a great basketball story into something historic on a completely different level. That would not just be legacy in the abstract. It would be legacy made literal in real time. Put all of it together and every thread points the same way. The Lakers have a natural turning point, the Cavaliers are built to win now, the recruiting is happening, the business case is strong, the emotional pull is overwhelming, and the basketball fit is real. LeBron James, already immortal, already carved into the stone of NBA history, may now have one last chance to do what almost no legend gets to do, which is end the story exactly the way it should end. Not by fading out in someone else's chapter, not by hanging around long enough for the image to blur, but by choosing his own final scene, picking up the pen himself, and writing the closing line where it all started. Cleveland is ready, the roster is ready, the moment is ready, and after everything the basketball world has seen from LeBron over the last 2 decades, it would surprise nobody if he proved one more time that he always knew how this story was supposed to end. The Lakers have clearly reached a turning point, because the franchise has already made its pivot by handing the future to Luka Doncic, giving the next era a new face, a new voice, and a completely new identity. And as much as LeBron James has meant to that organization, as much as he helped restore its relevance and carried its banner, this no longer feels like his team anymore. The roster math does not comfortably support both LeBron's contract expectations and Luka's long-term max-level future at the same time, and if the Lakers are serious about building sustainably around their younger superstar, they need flexibility, not another season of trying to balance 2 timelines that naturally pull in different directions. For LeBron, that reality matters, because he has never been the type of player who would be satisfied spending the final stage of his career playing second fiddle in somebody else's movie, especially not after a lifetime of being the central force in every basketball universe he has entered. That is why more and more people who understand both the league's business side and its basketball side are saying the same thing. Close the Lakers chapter with dignity, let Luka fully take over the franchise, and move LeBron toward a final destination that makes more sense emotionally, competitively, and historically. Still, the usual pushback comes up whenever this idea is discussed, with people insisting that Los Angeles remains the obvious place for LeBron because of his business empire, his off-court ventures, and the life he has built there. But that argument is not nearly as airtight as it used to be. LeBron already has homes, already has powerful investments, already has business machinery operating at full force no matter what jersey he wears, and his global profile is no longer dependent on being physically based in one city. His Liverpool stake does not care whether he plays in Los Angeles or Cleveland. Spring Hill does not suddenly stop functioning because he leaves California, and his Nike relationship is far bigger than any one local market. He has already built an empire that runs on its own momentum, whether he is in Akron, LA, or back in Ohio, so the idea that he must stay with the Lakers for business reasons feels increasingly outdated. In fact, the strongest financial argument may point in the opposite direction, because a farewell tour built around LeBron James returning to Cleveland for his final season would become one of the biggest money-making spectacles the NBA has seen in years. Every road game would feel like a pilgrimage, every arena would sell the night as a once-in-a-generation event, and families everywhere would buy tickets months in advance just so their children could one day say they saw LeBron James play before it was over. That is not exaggeration, That is economics. The league would market it relentlessly, Nike would wrap campaigns around it, and every team would turn his visit into a celebration, tribute, or full-blown event. The commercial machine surrounding a LeBron goodbye season would be enormous, easily rivaling the energy that surrounded Kobe Bryant's final year, and maybe even surpassing it because LeBron would not just be ending his career, he would be returning to where the story began. Kobe closed the circle in purple and gold where he started, and the whole world stopped to watch, but LeBron going back home to Cleveland adds an even more dramatic layer because it turns retirement into myth-making. Then comes the legacy debate, with some people arguing that LeBron does not need any of this because he already has 4 championships, already sits securely in the greatest of all-time conversation, and already has nothing left to prove to anyone, and honestly that part is true. His resume is complete, his place in history is secure, and he does not need one more season to validate anything. But the counterpoint is just as strong, because history has already shown that late career chapters do not automatically damage legends. Michael Jordan spent 2 seasons with the Wizards looking older, slower, and at times far removed from his peak, yet none of that changed how the basketball world sees him now. His Wizards years became a footnote, not a scar, a sidebar rather than a defining chapter, and his mythology remained untouched. That same logic applies to LeBron. The idea that he would somehow damage his legacy by playing 1 more year, maybe 2, simply is not supported by the historical record. So the real question is not whether LeBron can afford to keep playing, but whether he can afford not to when Cleveland is sitting there offering such a powerful final chapter. The Cavaliers have a roster that looks ready to compete right now, they have players actively recruiting him. The city still holds a permanent place for him in its heart, and the ending available to him there feels so perfect, so cinematic, and so emotionally complete that it almost sounds written in advance. On top of all that is the Bronny factor, which makes the possibility even more meaningful. LeBron has openly said that one of the deepest and most personal goals of his later career was sharing the court with his son, and if there is any realistic path that could place LeBron and Bronny in Cleveland together, closing the circle in Ohio as father and son, then the story moves beyond basketball and becomes something historic in a much larger sense. That would not just be legacy in theory, it would be legacy made literal, visible, and unforgettable. This is why the entire situation keeps pointing in one direction. The Lakers have a natural transition point, Cleveland has a team built to win now, the emotional pull is obvious, the business case is strong, the basketball fit is frightening, and the narrative logic is almost too perfect to ignore. A lineup built around Donovan Mitchell, James Harden, Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen, and LeBron James would be terrifying for the rest of the East, and LeBron at 40, with every goal already achieved and every honor already earned, still has one final chance to do something that even he has never quite done before, end the story exactly the way it should end. Not by fading quietly, not by drifting too far from the image people want to remember, but by choosing his moment, writing his own conclusion, and drawing the last line himself. Go home, LeBron, because the city is ready, the roster is ready, the story is ready, and if the last 2 decades have taught the basketball world anything, it is that when LeBron James decides the time is right, he knows exactly how to make the moment feel bigger than the game itself.